You are listening to Productivity Straight Talk with your host, Amber De La Garza. Amber is a sought-after productivity coach, trainer, speaker, and writer who gives entrepreneurs the straight talk on personal productivity. No BS, fluff, or overused jargon. Just actionable strategies to get results and succeed in business. And here is your host, Amber De La Garza, the Productivity Specialist.
Welcome, and thank you for listening to Productivity Straight Talk. Today's episode 297. Dumping the head trash that's killing your productivity with Renie Cavallari. If you're a business owner who wants to learn effective business strategies, improve time management, and elevate productivity to maximize profits, reduce stress, and make time what matters most, then you're in the right place, and I'm so glad you've joined me. I'm looking forward to bringing our guest, Renie Cavallari, to today's conversation. Renie is the CEO and founder of Powered by Aspire, a globally awarded leadership development and strategic consulting firm, and the RCI Institute, an awakening human potential research and leadership development lab. She is a fanatical entrepreneur, having founded 4 companies plus a 501c3, and is recognized as an organizational anthropologist, CEO advisor, and strategic leadership coach. She is the author of 7 books, with her latest, Head Trash, The Leading Killer of Human Potential, becoming an Amazon bestseller and winning the prestigious Hollywood Bowl Best in Business Award. Renie is a member of the National Speakers Association and was named an Outstanding Woman in Business by Phoenix Business Journal. In today's conversation, you will discover how head trash affects our work and business, 3 ways to deal with it effectively, how to make the necessary shift to the other side of your brain, the 5 questions that allow you to start your day on the connected side of your emotional brain, advice for self-motivation and improving productivity, and so much more. Before we dive into today's conversation, I want to make sure that you have taken my new quiz. I have a quiz called the Next Level Business Owner Quiz. Take the quiz. It's just a few minutes that asks you some questions about your experience with business, and I will let you know where your biggest obstacles are. And I'm not just telling you where they are, I'm going to be giving you the strategies on how to overcome them with a curated playlist from Productivity Straight Talk. We have nearly 300 episodes, and what I've done is created a curated playlist for you to find those strategies to unlock those challenges in your business so that you can take your business to the next level. To get your own curated playlist, head on over to amberdelagarza.com/quiz. Again, that's amberdelagarza.com/quiz. And now let's meet our guest and get to the straight talk. Welcome to Productivity Straight Talk, Renie. How are you today?
I'm great, thank you. How are you, Amber?
I'm so good. We just met, but we got to chat a little bit before we hit record. And you are enjoying the beach life today. So thank you so much for making time for us. I would love for our listeners to learn a little bit about you that we didn't hear in your bio. And then also answer, why do I get to talk to you about mindset today? What took you on this journey about being an expert on mindset?
Well, to start with my background, I'm a fanatical entrepreneur. I have 4 companies. One of them is called Powered by Aspire. And 28 years ago, when we started on this journey with Powered by Aspire, it was really about understanding how do you align leadership so they can align their organization, and how do you shift cultures. And which hasn't really died in popularity. Actually, I think after COVID, it's become even more visible of what a misalignment can do to an organization. And so, we started studying how do you shift human behavior. And that really has been, my journey, my passion for the last 30 plus years working with Aspire and also the RCI Institute, which is the arm that studies human behavior. So, and that arm really has led to years and years, actually decades of understanding what is that one thing that we can all control that really can mess us up. And that is our head trash. It's the mindset that we take on things. And it's very easy for us to say, especially when we're in a good space, well, you got to have a positive mindset. Like, no kidding. But it's really hard. Yeah. Right. It's really hard to do. And what's happened over these last handful of years, and what my latest book, Head Trash, is about, is really this issue of how do we shift our mind from so much negativity and head trash, which are those little voices that, they steal our energy, they take away our potential, and they really undermine us. And how do we get out of that head trash so that we can really aspire and have what we want in any aspect of our life? And certainly in our work life, that can really get in our way, because it's not just our head trash we're dealing with everybody else's head trash.
That's so true. I actually would love to get into that too. But let's just start with ourselves. So as business owners, we are always putting ourselves in challenging new growth opportunity situations, which it reminds me of the saying, new level, new devil, right? So you get your mindset and you work on it on a particular area in your business. And then the next thing comes and you're like, I thought I got that. I thought I had that mastered. And it kind of is another opportunity to work on it. So I would love to just hear your thoughts on how we manage head trash, and also based on all your research and experience, how is it affecting our work and how we show up in our businesses?
So there's really 3 ways to deal with head trash that we've studied, and we've been working with tens of thousands of leaders. So RCI Institute is actually an active lab. It's human beings. It's not a PhD study. It's a study of how human beings in particular lead as entrepreneurs, especially. So the first way is really, it's proactive, and it's what are our habits? So how we wake up in the morning is one of the most important habits that we have. Like for me, I don't get out of bed until I meditate. I have a very active mind, so I need to have a guided meditation. Like this morning, I tried to listen to some waves meditation. It was ridiculous. I was like all over the place. But you have to find what works for you that gets you to what we call the connected side of your emotional brain. So what's important to understand when we're looking at our life is that, of course, we have a physical brain, which is operating our body. But our life is actually, the whole game is about your emotional brain. And what we identified was that the emotional brain has 2 sides, a connected side and a disconnected side. And it is really in understanding that when we get up in the morning and we look at our habits, we can make sure that we are living in the connected side of our emotional brain. So if I get up in the morning, like during COVID in particular, it's an easy example we all relate to. We would turn on the news and, of course, how many more people were sick? How many more people were dying? The crisis after crisis really threw us all on the disconnected side of our emotional brain. And some of us have had a very difficult time in getting out of that crisis mode. And that became the habit, the anxiety, the issues, all the time. So through things like, for me, meditation, some people run. I only run if you're chasing me, quite frankly. I do yoga. What is it that you do that really allows you to decrease your emotional stress? So I had to stop also opening up my email right away. Like sometimes, I wouldn't even be out of bed and I'd be looking at my email. And Aspire is a global company. There is something that probably went wrong somewhere while I was sleeping. And if that's the first thing I see, it throws me into the disconnected side of my emotional brain. So another habit I had to break was to have a habit of looking at my email right away before I was taking care of myself. And so once we start to understand that when we do things, we set ourselves up to live in one side of the emotional brain. And throughout the day, we can go to the other side. But the more strength we build in being in the emotional, the decreased area, that where we can decrease our emotional stress, we actually gain clarity. And that's one of the most important things to understand. When we are in the connected side of our emotional brain, imagine an arrow going down and underneath it, write emotional stress. So we can decrease our emotional stress through doing certain things that help us do that. And then through decreasing our emotional stress, we actually gain clarity. And that clarity is like an arrow going across. And that clarity allows us to then take productive action, which is an arrow going up. So the opposite of that is that we have high levels of emotional stress, and therefore, instead of clarity, we have chaos, and therefore we don't have productive action. We might have action, but it's not as productive. And so that's really the secret of the proactive approach to really making sure you are really getting ahead of your head trash.
Okay. Now, I know you have more, but I want to stop there and pause there for a second. I have some questions. So one of the things that you said actually answered my question, but I want to go deeper, is that you can go in and out of connected and unconnected. So this takes a lot of self-awareness, I would assume, to understand what state you're in. And when you have self-awareness, what is it that it feels like or looks like, or how does it show up when you're in the disconnected? And you're giving us examples of morning routines, but as we're going in and out, what are some tools that you use to navigate to what side you're on in your emotional stress?
In your emotional brain. Yes, in your emotional brain. So here's the thing that is so important, and you are absolutely correct. And you almost don't even need to be like super self-aware.
Okay.
Though being self-aware, we kind of, when we're in the disconnected side, we are aware because we feel things like anxiousness, worry, fear, disappointment, anger, right? These negative emotions that trigger us allow us to become aware that we're in the disconnected side. And so another way to get over to the connected side when you're already there, like as you said, like in the morning, it's important to start right. But throughout the day, something happens and we get a disappointment, or someone just, ticks us off, and it happens. Someone cuts us off in traffic, and, we're in a rush to get somewhere. And of course we hit every red light. All that negative self-talk, all that craziness that starts to happen, we have to look at the questions we're asking ourselves. So if we're asking ourselves a question like, why is this happening? It keeps us in the disconnected side of our emotional brain. But if we ask a question like, well, what's the first thing I can do to improve this situation? It shifts us. And what we identified and capture in the book is really that there's a 3-step process. And you are absolutely right, Amber. Step 1 is own it, which is being aware. And step 2 is to shift it. And you shift it through the quality of the questions you ask is one way of shifting it. And actually, if you go to poweredbyrenie.com, you'll see a list of shift questions. So you just go to resources. There's no shenanigans. You can get all kinds of resources, but you drop down and you'll see shift questions. And those shift questions are really handy to memorize and have on hand, because you have stuck questions that keep you stuck in the disconnected side, and shift questions that shift you to that power side of your emotional brain. The other way that you can get out of the disconnected side is take a look around, because who you hang with is who you become, or change up your environment. That's why, like, sometimes in the middle of the day, you just need to stop for lunch, or you just need to stop to take a walk, or to step away, especially when you feel that anxiety. So once you shift, then now you can dump the head trash, because you're in a productive state. So it goes back to, you decrease that emotional stress. So now you can increase your productive action.
I love the framework for regulating emotional stress. It's really a framework step of doing this throughout the day. Okay, so that was what I was curious about. But you said that mornings was step number 1, or key number 1 for you. So I wanted to let you get back to your list.
Well, you've actually touched on it. The second thing is to really look at, your environment, because a lot of times we think we can't control our environment. Maybe we're in an office and the office is chaotic, or we're working with people and we really don't have a great connection with them. These are just realities that we face. And so what can you do in your environment that keeps you in that connected side of your emotional brain? For some of us, like I have water pitchers and they're really pretty. I collected them. I've traveled the world and I collect them and I have them on my desk. So it serves like it keeps me hydrated. I keep filling up my glass so I feel like I'm accomplishing something. And then at the same time, it looks good, or you have pictures around or motivational things. So our environment matters. Who our friends are matters.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you take a call from somebody who happens to be a friend, but they're a Debbie Downer, then it might not be a good time to take that call. So always make sure that you're looking at environment. And it reminds me of this story when my grandson came to visit, and there was something that had gone on at the beach and the sand had gotten contaminated. And I was so just annoyed. I, finally was at the beach, my happy place. And I looked to my left and there are these big truck things, navigators or whatever they're called. And, dump trucks and all these things. And I looked at it, I was so annoyed. And all I could think of was who did this? Why did this happen? Negative stuff. And I was annoyed with it for a day. Every time I opened my door, I could hear this, it was annoying. So a few days later, my grandson, Aiden, comes and he's 5.5, but at the time he was 3 years old. And he comes running in and he's so happy to see me. And he's just joy. And he runs out to the deck and he looks over, and with all the joy you can imagine, he screams, that, oh my gosh, it's a dump truck. It's all these trucks that he sees that are cleaning up the beach, the backhoes and all of it. And he's screaming, Gigi, look at that. Oh, can we go to the beach? And I have to tell you, Amber, for the next 2 months, every single morning I got up and I created a story about all those pieces of equipment so that I could send it to him when he wasn't there. Because in a nanosecond, he changed my environment.
Yes. He had a different perception of the same situation, right? So he invited you over to his perception of it, which is awesome. I love that.
And in a nanosecond, he took me from the disconnected side where I was annoyed and blah, 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 to this connected side. And then he got me to take action, even though he didn't even ask. And so this is the power of our environment. And a lot of times we don't give it credit. I'm a creative, I'm an author of 7 books, and I'm always writing another one. And there can be stuff all over the place. But I do have to clean it up because otherwise it's too chaotic. And then I can't focus on what I need to focus on. So it's really important to look at our environment, whether it's people, whether it's the physical elements of our environment. The third area is really those stuck versus shift questions. And that's the powerhouse. To remember that there's 3 steps to shift to getting to dumping your head trash. The first is own it, which is awareness. The second is really look at the questions you're asking yourself, because the questions you ask yourself defines how you focus, and that defines the quality of your life. And that's the key, because when we focus on things and really, when we're on that connected side of our emotional brain, we're creative, we're collaborative, we can listen, we are open, we have joy and happiness, all of that. And so when you learn, one of my favorite shift questions, Amber, is, who do I want to be right now? And so when I'm sitting in a situation and I'm judging it, or something's annoying me, and, I'm going to, get on my high horse about something. And I know I shouldn't, but I can't help it. I'm human. I'm in my lowest kind of space of judgment, etc. And then I ask myself, who do I want to be right now? All of a sudden that, fight I was going to have with my husband seems to dissipate, because, who do I really want to be right now? Do I really want to get into something with someone I love over trash? Really? And how do I want to get there? And it doesn't mean that I deny having that conversation on taking the trash out. It's how I go about it. And that's the productive action versus unproductive action. So if I go and I have that conversation with him when I'm on the disconnected side, I'm going to go at it a lot differently, and therefore it'll be unproductive. Where if I get myself to the connected side, I can still have the same conversation. It's just how I have it and inevitably how we resolve whatever the conflict is. And the beauty of this is that you can do it in any aspect of your life.
Yeah, I mean, I can totally see. I love that you used your spouse as an example, but I can totally see this as leading people, your employees. What type of leader do I want to be in this moment? What kind of boss do I want to be in this moment? So I love that. I wanted to ask. First of all, I am on your website. We will link to this. You're right. You have tons of amazing resources without having to do all the different opt-ins and sort and click around. So this is really good.
Yeah.
But I wanted to ask, in your toolbox, what types of questions help shift negative self-talk? Like, I don't know how to do this. I'm not a good leader. I am, horrible at time management. And we're kind of sitting in those beliefs of ourselves, that head trash, which we can both agree isn't going to help us take action on making any improvements in those areas. How do you get yourself unstuck or out of that, change that behavior, thought process, I guess?
Well, there's lots of, I think you touched on it. First, we have to be aware of what we're saying to ourselves. So, there are times, hey, I've been an entrepreneur for over 28 years now, and I've been a crappy boss more than once. I've, made really crappy decisions that, I'm not proud of. It's just the reality. And I think that, what we have to understand is that when we are feeling like, I'm being a crappy boss right now, or being an ineffective leader right now, is to ask a different question. So it can be as simple as, that's why I said my favorite is, who do I want to be right now? Mm-hmm. And if I say I want to be a really effective leader, then my next question is, how can I be an effective leader? Mm-hmm. Well, I can listen right now. I can step away and regroup right now. I can ask a question and see how someone else is doing right now. I can add more compassion into my world right now, which, by the way, is one of the most important tools that we have as leaders. So those questions are powerful. But I also think, going back to, in particular with business and being ineffective with business, or what have you as a leader or a boss, is, how can you build connection with people? Because what happened with COVID, that, there's going to be lots of studies, but what we know for sure is that people feel really isolated. They felt disconnected. They feel overwhelmed and alone. We have, so much mental illness, and a portion of it is because we're more accepting of it. And so people are more open about it. And yet another portion of it is that there was, this pandemic called COVID, but an epidemic of, head trash, and actually these feelings, because, head trash is an element of these kind of feelings of not being good enough. And we all have those feelings at times. So I think that where we can connect, and be really intentional in our connection, where we can be kind, which is compassion. For me, I work with a lot of people in the service industry, and I've just decided that whoever is serving me at any moment in time, I am with intention saying, thank you for your service today. And when we do that with someone, we can decrease their emotional stress. And when their emotional stress is lower, they don't have the same chaos. Mm-hmm. All of a sudden they have clarity. They feel different. They go to the connected side of their emotional brain. And therefore, when they serve the next person, they might feel a little lighter. And so I think that the best thing that we can do is really be aware of, what energy are we putting out there, and how can we build a little more muscle around connection, around acceptance over expectation, around kindness, and this sense of compassion for people, because that changes how we feel about ourselves, and it has a ripple on everyone else around us.
Excellent. And for those of you that are listening, I get to see she's wearing a hat that says "Be kind." So she's really living this out. This is exactly what her motto is. And I think that that is really true. Like being able to connect with people and feed off their energy and know that you were able to make a positive impact on other people's lives. How could you not feel more positive about yourself and your own life? When you were talking about the question shifting, something that came up for me was, do you think of your work as the questions of like self-coaching? And the reason I ask that is because if I say something like, I'm horrible at time management, it's a statement, it's a period, it feels stuck to me, right? And the work I do as a coach is ask questions to invite people to have a different perspective. And so by shifting the question for your example to something like, well, what can I do today to improve my time management? Is literally like inviting ideas, problem solving, flow, literally going from stuck to like open-ended, from a period to a question mark. And it seems like a great self-coaching tool. And just that habit, you've been talking about habit, the habit of acknowledging that statement's not serving me, to what can I get curious about that can serve me, let me show up the person that I want to be. So long-winded question, but do you ever look at this as self-coaching, like getting yourself out of your head trash?
I do think it's self-coaching. And I also think that, self-coaching is really hard because when we're stuck, it's really hard for us to get unstuck and go, okay, like I just feel stuck. I'm so when we know that we can just shift by changing our environment, or who you hang with is who you become, or, looking at our habits that serve us and don't serve us, and have questions. So, there are a handful of questions that I have, and they're actually listed there, that they're my go-to question. Mm-hmm. And I love how you frame that, so what is it that I can do to have better time management today? Like that is immediate action. So I'll get in there. So it might be like I was reading some of your work on your site, of having, a detailed plan, like working it and getting. So when you ask that question effectively, then you get to use your resources. Then you get to go to something like your site and start to see, ooh, here's a resource that can help me. And you find what works for you. And I think that's the thing, is know what works for you. Like for me, sometimes I when you're an author, people tend to ask, oh, so you've had this book and, Head Trash has done well. And their next comment is, so what are you writing next? And the truth of the matter is, I don't know. Right. And so instead of the pressure, I'd say early on as an author, I felt like I had to write, well, I better have the next thing. And I think for me, I just feel like when we cut ourselves a little bit of a break, and so we just say, well, what can I do today to make some progress? You want to avoid the word stuck, right? So what can I do today to make some progress? How can I, what's one thing I can do to improve my time management today? Or who can I call that really lifts me up? Then we start utilizing our thoughts in a more productive way. And I also think that it's important, Amber, and Head Trash has a lot of stories in it. And they're stories about my own head trash. And they're quite, some of them are very embarrassing and humbling. But I feel like a lot of times we look at people and we decide, if they're successful. And we think that their success is like all glory. And I'm here to tell you that, I think success means joy. And that's how I define it. It's not the things I had. Now I'm very blessed. I was a working class kid from Philly. I'm just, I was happy when I got a car, so, so I have a high appreciation. I don't want it to sound like, oh, well, it's easy to say things don't matter when you have them, because that is true. Things don't, things are less meaningful that way. But when we define success as joy, and joy is elements of happiness that we collect, we start to look at things differently. And we start to find, okay, so what is it about my job that I do love versus this job sucks, man. And I can't stand my boss, and we get stuck in that other side. And I'm not saying that you don't love if you don't love your job, you don't love your job. And sometimes we have a job that we just need to have at this time. So what is it about it that we do like? And what is it about it that does serve us? And when we start asking those kinds of questions, now we're going to find more gratitude. And I think the last thing I'll say about that, is over the years for me as an entrepreneur, I think one of the challenges that many of us have as bosses, as leaders in general, is that, we're helping other people navigate, but we don't necessarily always have a coach. I'm lucky. I've had a coach for decades, but we don't always have a coach or someone that we can go to. And over the years, I've identified 5 questions that allow you to really start your day on the connected side of your emotional brain. And I'll give you those 5.
Yes,
okay?
I'm like, oh, wait, I want to hear them. Yes.
Okay. So the first is, what is my word of the day? And this was actually a question that one of my mentors, Peter Thomas, who's an amazing human being, gave me years ago. And the word of the day, like today, my word of the day is inspire, because I'm here with you. Yesterday was a play date for me. So it was just about love, like loving things that I was doing all day. So, sometimes it's productive, sometimes it's focused. So what's your word of the day? The second question is, what head trash do I need to let go of from yesterday? So that helps me because, like, let's say, someone ticked me off and I'm still kind of carrying it around, or maybe I'm really I got a big wagon of it, whatever, but I get it down and I get it out of me. And by the way, I have a joy journal, and the joy journal has these 5 questions, and that was only out of request because you can just write it down and get it out of there. And then the third is, what is important for me to focus on today? And really get your arms around where you're going to go. And the fourth is, what did I accomplish yesterday? Actually, I flipped them over. So third is, what did I accomplish yesterday? So that's a great question. Think about it. You're shifting out of the disconnected side because you were thinking about, what head trash did I have, which is the disconnected side. Now, what did I accomplish yesterday is a great question for getting into the connected side. The fourth question is, what's important for me to focus on today? So now we're into productive action. And then the fifth question, which is my go-to question, especially even at the end of the day, is, what am I grateful for? Because nothing helps us get out of our own head trash like gratitude. And so when I am struggling, I'm having a tough time, I have a daughter, I have a bonus daughter too. I'm so blessed. And so, I worry about the kids. Like, that's my job. That's part of my job description. I'm a worrier. I wish I wasn't, but I am. And so what shifts me out of worry, which is in the disconnected side, is, what am I grateful for? And then my list gets pretty good pretty fast. And I, can fall asleep. I can take a few deep breaths and, and feel like, okay.
You got this. Yeah, I love those tools. As you were sharing, is that you said, you got to find out what works for you. In my program Leverage Lab, one of the master classes is called Mindset Matters. And it's really, the way that I teach it is, it's foundational. It's not a check this box, you pass or fail. Like, mindset is the thing that you will work on always, every day. In most opportunities, we get an opportunity to work on our mindset. And similar to what you were sharing is that I call it your toolbox. So there's your everyday tools that you use to maintain a good, positive mindset. And as you said, not all days are created equal. And some days you need extra tools from your toolbox. And what's in my toolbox is going to be different than what's in your toolbox. So, neither one of us will find running in our toolboxes, but we might have some other similarities as well. And so it sounds like a great experiment that if we asked our listeners here today to explore what it is that works for them, it's to invite them to experiment with different ways to get that shift, right? And to get them connected to their emotional brain. And so I really just love that. And I just want to draw some similarities into, I've never heard connected and disconnected emotional brain before, but I did understand that it takes work to consistently maintain the mindset that really sets us up for a more joyful business, more joyful life.
Well, if you think about it, if you want to have, muscles and health in your body, you have to work at it every day. You have to, whether it's lift weights or, recover from yesterday's, cookies last night and get back into cleansing your body today. And so we always are falling off. We're not perfect. We're perfectly imperfect. And I think, actually in Head Trash, when I was writing the book, we actually did a study. We had over 1,000 people, and we asked them to tell us ways that they went about getting to the connected side of their emotional brain, the things that they did. And the data came back. There was actually in the book, there's 29 ways. And only because the data stopped at 29 and then it became like pretty much minutia. But, some people, it's dancing. And, other people, it was working out and so I think it's a great idea that you're suggesting here, that when we're in the connected side, to self-reflect and go, well, what is it that I can do to be proactive and live more in the connected side of my emotional brain? And, I play the flute, and there's things that I like to do that, I love to walk and hike. So when you know those things, then you can grab a hold of them when you need them and really be more intentional about it. So I love this idea of, getting people to really proactively, you don't need 29 things. You only need, 2 or 3 go-to ways to help you shift. But make sure you run those shift questions.
Yeah, but I do recommend getting the book. Like, let's go, read the book, see what the 29 are, because, when you're just thinking to yourself, what creates connectivity for you or brings you joy or puts you in the right mindset, however you want to phrase that, maybe nothing's coming up for you right away. So let's read the book and find out what could possibly be in your toolbox to help you maintain a positive mindset. And then, I wanted to just shift a little bit here, and you've mentioned it quite a few times about productive activity. And you had a great visual of, decreasing emotional stress. And then it's a straight line to clarity. And with clarity, that there is action. What do you find helps with getting that productive action, like in a fast, quickly throughout the day? Is it truly just the questions? Like, I'm just thinking of a typical client where you are literally being challenged as a business owner day in and day out, and there's resistance to certain work, or there's resistance to doing things you don't just love doing. How can we quickly get ourselves into productive activity?
Well, there's, these are tried and true, and I think it's very personal. What gets us motivated. And, if you're lucky enough to do something you love and really understand why it's serving you, not just how it's contributing, but what is it that really lights you up about whatever it is that, you do, because you spend so much time in work mode for most of us. And so to make sure that we have that, then there's the, simple things like, this is the hardest one for me, do the toughest thing first. Because, there's nothing, I can procrastinate like nobody's business if I just have to do the first thing first. So I block, I am a Sunday afternoon person. My husband laughs at me because I get my computer out and I time manage my week out, and I put things in there that are minutia. Like today I had to review my Cox. I had to figure out how to get onto the Cox network and deal with my internet and all this stuff. And I just blocked time. I gave myself an hour because 1, I don't like doing it. And 2, I knew I won't know my password. I won't know this. I won't know that. And it's some silly thing, but it's an important thing that I needed to take care of to make sure everything was right, et cetera. It's been on my mind, making noise, like, because it always seems like that doggone bill keeps getting bigger. Like, I decrease the services and the bill keeps getting bigger. So I'm using this as an example because it's minutia, and there's so many other things that I could do that are more productive, but there's no one to really delegate that to. I really just needed to handle it. So I blocked the time. And I think planning tomorrow today is a gift that was given to me decades ago, early on in my career, because I was missing deadlines and I wasn't getting to things effectively. And my boss was annoyed with me. And that was, gave me a lot of motivation. And it wasn't enough for her to tell me, look, you impact other people because you're not showing up, or that people don't have, can't trust in you because you're not. Like, I felt bad about that, but I didn't know what to do about that. And when that person, back then there wasn't any internet. Now we're so lucky because like you go, you search and it says, how do you plan tomorrow today? And they'll give you all kinds of great resources. And so utilize them and find the thing that works for you, because it's like a diet. I think, some diets work for some people, and I'm not necessarily talking about a diet of weight loss. Every body is different. And so some bodies just have to have a different kind of protein, and it can't be plant-based. And, other people, I'm a veggie-holic. I got a problem with vegetables. So I have to really be conscientious about having, lean protein in my diet, because I go without it and it's no good for me. So we have to understand that we're all different. So what turns us on, and what you're talking about, is how to turn on your motivational switch and get shit done that needs to get done.
That's right.
And some of it is just, after I hang up with you, I got to, call the people out here to get my car because the 1 year thing is up and I need to go do that. And I don't want to do that. But today I gave myself easy things to do because I wanted to preserve my brain for time with you. And it was kind of like one of those days where I just needed to check things off. I happen to know I love crossing stuff off my list.
Yes.
Okay. And the next thing I would share with you that really helps me is on a monthly basis, I write out what are my priorities for this next month. And I got to tell you, some things get carried over month after month. I got some things that have been on there a while, but they still stay front of mind. So they might not be urgent enough yet. But I think by really just mapping things out, we have a chance to decrease our stress because it's not all inside our head. People ask me this question, like, what do you do when you wake up in the middle of the night? You have all this head trash, you can't fall back asleep. My only suggestion to that is write it down, and then it's there. You don't have to worry about it. And you write it down and get it down on that piece of paper or whatever it is, or speak into your phone, and then shut it down. And then ask yourself, close your eyes and ask yourself, what am I grateful for right now?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I just want to first of all, those are all great suggestions. You literally talked about planning your week. And when we say everything's an experiment, that's why I called my program Leverage Lab. It's an experiment, right? And planning your week, that is a foundational strategy that works. But how you plan your week and when you plan your week is how you get to customize it, how it fits for you. When you said pulling your laptop out on a Sunday, I could have cringed. That would never work for me, right? Like, right. If I have the temptation to be at a barbecue over at a friend's house or family members on a Sunday, I would never have the willpower to say, nope, I got to plan my week. So Sundays don't work for me, but Fridays do. I like to wrap up my week and know what I'm going into for the weekend and week. Planning your days. We have a great episode. We'll link out to it, but I teach that as your daily wrap, review, and action plan. So, like 5 steps, how to get it all out of your head. When you do that consistently, I've found it helps with sleep, right? You consistently giving yourself the opportunity. Step number 3 in that is just a mind sweep, like literally download all the things that are swimming around in your head for sure. And then I also wanted to speak to the other thing is that, look, doing the first thing that's most important first works for a lot of people. It doesn't work for me. And so here at Productivity Straight Talk, we really like to encourage finding what works and doubling down on that. I like to say I'm like a car that needs warming up. I need some quick wins of crossing things off my list, right? But like you, like that little dopamine hit, that little, okay, win. And then I'll dive into the big thing, that meaty thing that needs my attention. And I only share that to say you were amazing at sharing this list. I agree with the list. And there's more than one way to go about these strategies. And so it's all so helpful to take productive action in our day-to-day. And you were a great example, not just in our business. Everything we learn on how to manage our time and our businesses is exactly what we need in our personal lives. It's the same. Time blocking worked for you to get something personal done. I time block those things I don't, want to do or eager to do, but it's adulting. And sometimes we have to call Cox Cable.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
But I just love how this conversation turns. So thank you so much for sharing with us about head trash. And it sounds like this book is amazing. I didn't get a chance to read it beforehand, but I am definitely going to take a read, because so much of what you were sharing is something that I am so passionate about. It's just learning strategies to better manage our mind so that we can have, you called it joyful moments, I believe. That stuck with me. Is that what you said, right?
Yeah.
I was like, did she say that, or is that what I heard? But I heard joyful moments.
Well, it's joyful moments, and ultimately it's joy,
Yeah.
And like you said, sometimes we get, happiness is a derivative, like joy is the parent company, and then happiness is, but sometimes it's as simple as what you said, which is, getting a little bit of that dopamine, because like I get up in the morning, and for me on my list, is meditate.
Mm-hmm.
And I get to cross that right off. And then I journal. I do my 5-question journal. So then joy journal, click. And then I check that off. And then I'll do a little yoga, check. So I include a lot of things on my list that give me some runway. But I also have to say that one of the things that, I can speak to personally is the need for us also to be, forgiving of ourselves, because, like I said, I do my priorities on a monthly basis, and getting a new flute teacher has been on that list now for 6 months. And I'm embarrassed to say that, because I want to, but I got all kinds of reasons why I'm not getting to it. And sometimes you have to just let it go and accept, like, okay, this isn't the right time for this, even though I love play my flute. It's just not the right time to do this, and have faith. Like, it's going to come together, because I'm putting it out there and I'm going to move towards it. But to go easy, because, some people, they make a big list and then they only get through half the list and then they feel bad. My suggestion is, then keep the big list, but just break it down a little bit, make it a little easier for yourself. So you chunk things down, but to let things go when you don't get all the way there, because there's lots of days where I'm taking action, but it's not productive action. And that's the difference, is that you want to really, and as a leader, we all know this, and one of the things we studied were high performance teams at, Powered by Aspire. And the high performance team has high positivity and high productivity. So that means that your people, you are helping them manage their head trash, their mindset. And that their productivity, therefore, comes because they have clarity of what they're supposed to be productive about.
That's huge.
It's huge.
That's so huge. I'm so glad you said that, because business owners are looking for that, actually. And you're the one that needs to also provide that for your team, is like, what does being productive in your role or in the business look like? And having that own clarity for yourself, I know absolutely changes it, because it changes the definition of productivity. So I just want to speak to this point really quick, is that when we are not nice to ourselves, when we are beating ourselves up because we didn't get it all done on the list, a lot of what I teach is, well, how are you defining being productive? Because it could have meant just getting one of those things done on the list. It didn't mean being busy all day, getting it all done. And so can we invite ourselves to have clarity around what being quote unquote productive is? And sometimes that might be taking a day off. Like, that might mean your most productive thing is investing in a relationship And other times it's going to be closing a deal with your biggest client. But really getting clarity doesn't allow you to use it as a blanket statement of, I either got it all done or I got nothing done.
Right. Well, it's progress over perfection. That's for sure. And, where we see progress, then we can feel good. And that's the thing about making sure your people are set up where they have clarity. Like that's why morning meetings are so important, or shift meetings, whatever time of day. So the point of that meeting is to help people get clarity of what they're supposed to do, how they're supposed to do it, whatever information they need so they can be highly productive. Because when they have high productivity, you feel good. And it then feeds back to the high positivity. When you have redundancy in businesses and lots of errors in businesses and chaos in business, you can know that you have lower levels of productivity, and that equates to lower levels of profitability every time.
I agree. Well, I think that's a good place to end today's conversation. Although I don't want to end it, I feel like we can both talk about this for quite some time. Thank you so much for bringing your insights and experience and knowledge to Productivity Straight Talk. If our listeners want to find out more about you and definitely get their hands on your books, it sounded like there were several, any of your books, how do they do that?
Okay. So, first of all, powered by Renie. So it's powered by REN as in Nancy IE, .com. And there's lots of resources there. So you can buy my latest book, Head Trash, The Leading Killer of Human Potential. It'll take you right to Amazon, or you can go to Amazon directly. Also, the Joy Journal is available on Amazon, and a couple other books are available there. Powered by Renie has resources, and there's resources for leadership, a whole series on leading the way forward today that we have put out for people. Again, it's free. All the resources are free on that site. So you don't have to buy anything to, get yourself moving in the direction you want. And if you want to reach out to me directly, you're welcome to reach out to me at Renie@poweredbyrenie.com as well. I'm also on Instagram at Powered by Renie and Facebook. So you can reach me there. Oh, and LinkedIn.
You're everywhere. Yes.
Yes. Renie Cavallari is on LinkedIn too. So, and we put resources up there as well. So anything to help people, really live in a feeling of kind of, not just things are okay, but having joy.
Oh, that's amazing. I'm actually on Amazon right now looking at your Joy Journal, and I can't wait to get my hands on it. So we will be able to link out to all of this. Thank you so much for being an amazing guest, and thanks for being here.
Thank you, Amber.
I have loved having you listen to this episode of Productivity Straight Talk. And I sure hope you have found today's conversation to be incredibly insightful and valuable. But I need to be straight with you. No change, no change. Without taking action, nothing will change for you or your business. So based on today's conversation, I would like to invite you to observe the way you're speaking to yourself and choose something different the next time you observe you talking unkindly to yourself. And another actionable that you may pull from today's episode is what inspired you to maintain the mindset that best supports your success. In our conversation, we talked about many, many different strategies that can really help you set yourself up to invest in your mindset. And I'm sure I said it, if not once, many, many, many times on episodes of Productivity Straight Talk. But mindset is one of those things that you never stop focusing on. It is not going to be one of those skill sets, habits, or behaviors that you suddenly just never have to deal with again. You can just check it off your list. Mindset is going to be one of those areas that you are going to continually want to be showing up and supporting yourself in, growing and challenging yourself, and observing how new situations in your life and your business maybe pull up some old behaviors that are not serving you well. So How do you plan on taking care of yourself after listening to today's episode? I'd love to hear from you. If you enjoyed today's episode, I really love to hear from the listeners of Productivity Straight Talk. Find me over on Instagram at Amber_De La Garza. Send me a message and just let me know you're a listener. Maybe let me know a favorite episode. I truly get a lot of motivation in showing up each and every week here by connecting with my listeners. And as a reminder, if you have not already paused and gone over and taken my new quiz, I highly recommend it. Head on over to amberdelagarza.com/quiz. Answer a couple questions. I'll let you know where your biggest challenge is in taking your business to the next level. And then I'll be providing you a curated playlist with specific strategies to be able to overcome that. So that's my straight talk for today. Until next time, have a productive week.